welcome. My name is Vicky Wishay, and this is a Wealthy Life podcast, a podcast designed to take you through the 3 steps to a wealthy life. Understanding your mind and getting yourself to be successful as speedily as you possibly can comes from inside this little circle that sits on the top of our necks. Your thoughts control your ability to succeed and the speed that that success comes for you. I want to help you set your mind for success, and that's what last week's podcast was really all about. And then once you've got this alignment between what you want to achieve and what you're capable of achieving, we need to understand the finances, because that's the foundations that provide the resources for you. So controlling your finances, making sure that you understand that money is maths and that you can just make this work for you. It's a tool, it's unemotional, and it's something that can be leveraged. I've spoken about that quite a lot in the last couple of weeks as well. And then, of course, once you've achieved that, so you're in control of your mind and you're in control of your money, the next thing you need to do is to get all of that working harder for you. And that's where investment comes in. There are many ways to invest, but you know I am somewhat biased towards property investment. So I tend to talk about property investment. And this episode has been one of a series of 12, which have really been about property investment. And while there have been some very specific ones in there, I think there have been messages throughout these episodes that you can apply to any part of your life. So I suppose this one might fall into the mindset side of things. This episode this week is called What Does Success Look Like for You? And it's really about asking you almost to get into a time machine and go forward 5 years and then look at what you've achieved. And of course, as it's just a dream, you can decide what it is that you've achieved. What does life, a wealthy life, look like for you in 5 years' time? Are you spending more time with the family? Have you changed the way that you work and that you earn money? Have you started a new relationship, ended an old relationship? Have you increased your fitness and your health? Have you had lots of holidays? What is it that you want? And once you decide what you want, then it's about looking back down this timeline and going, okay, what were the things that had to happen in order for me to be in this place where I am now? And if you do that, like I've done in the past under sort of a meditation come hypnotism, you can sort of really make that a very powerful exercise. But I'd like you to sort of play along and do this for yourself, do this with my support. Hop forward 5 years, just take a moment, have a think about what it is. If you're in a place where you can make some notes, write a few sentences out about how you would describe your life in 5 years from now. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you able to do? Where do you live? Who are you with? And write down some of those points. And then use this podcast to help you work out what are those steps that have brought you here. So I hope you find this very insightful. And I'm sure that you're going to need to come back to this one and listen to it for a second time. I'm going to do my best to keep it short. I know the last one was quite a long one, so I will keep this episode short for you. Right, let's get to it then. So, what does success look like for you? We're going to do this on the basis of an exercise, and you can either join in the exercise or you can just imagine that you're doing the exercise and know that the answers will come to you anyway. So, here we are 5 years in the future, and you are able to write down some sentences about what this life, this version of your life looks like. Now, what I would say here is possibly one of the first things that you're starting off thinking is, well, I don't know what it would look like. I can't imagine that. That's perfectly okay. Just imagine something, and it doesn't really matter what it is, and you can always change it, improve it, add to it later. This isn't This isn't a rule. This isn't going to be carved on your tombstone if you have one. This is all about playing a mind game here to get your thoughts, building on what we were talking about last week with the whole mindset, to actually start your thoughts around what is it that you want? Do you know what you want? And therefore, can you spot the opportunities that are going to help you achieve that goal? And if you don't start thinking about what you want, then you're not going to be able to spot the right opportunities. So let's start off with, what does success look like to you? So here we are, 5 years in the future. You've written down some things about how this life looks, just little notes to remind yourself. Now think, what tips or messages would you share with yourself now about the difference that this success has made to your life? So really what we're saying about is, here are the 5 sentences that have described your life in the future. How is that an improvement on your life now? Because what I'd like it to be is a positive improvement. Let's not do this in the negative. This is about positive. Here we are, 5 years in the future, life is looking good. And how has that difference made you feel? And what can you share with your 5-year younger self on success? And how success, I believe, success breeds success. If you can do one thing, you can prove to yourself that you can do many things. Why do I say that? Because a lot of people, a lot of coaches maybe, and certainly if you ever go to a personal development event, will push you to make massive goals. I remember being in one goal setting session with one trainer, and they said, right, I want you to set a goal, write it in the back of your book about how much money you want to be earning in 5 years from now. So I wrote down my number. And then they had us all stand up, and they, got us all hyped up, and they said, right, who wants to earn, let's say, £1 million? Put your hands in the air. And then he said, wow, you're really selfish if you only want to earn £1 million. Because if you earn £10 million, you'd be able to do so much more stuff, so much more good in the world. Who wants to earn £10 million? Right, £10 million. And I found myself putting my hand up for £10 million. And then they said, wow, is that all you want to earn? Really, don't you want to make a difference to the world? And it had all been coached and couched in setting the scene. Right, okay, then I'll put my hands up for £1 billion. Yeah, I want to earn, in 5 years from now, I want to earn £1 billion or $1 billion, because then I'm going to be able to do so much good. And I really felt a shift in the room. There were people in the room of a certain personality type, and they hooked on to this. They hooked on about how much difference they could make in the world. Some of them wanted to go, in fact, a lot of them wanted to go to Africa, and nobody really wanted to go to Eastern Europe or the Far East. They always wanted to go to Africa and build schools or build hospitals or dig wells or do something. And I saw some of the people that I was mingling with really hang on to this, and that was their focus, that they, in 5 years, were going to earn £1 billion and they were going to change the world. Now, I don't want to ever limit anyone's belief, but in 20 years, I haven't seen somebody make from nothing to £1 billion, not that I know of, not that's in my field, not that started with really a very simple baseline. If you started with 500 million and then you didn't double it in 5 years, then I would very definitely be asking questions about what's holding you back. But if you don't even have your first million or your first 100,000, is that a goal too far? And so my view here is that if you set up, and I'm not saying you can't have that goal, but first of all, set up a couple of goals that said, I'm going to make my first sale. I'm going to buy my first house. I'm going to lose my first pound of weight. I'm going to go on my first date with someone. I'm going to look for my first investment properties. I'm going to find my area. One small thing that is really achievable. I'm going to get up half an hour earlier so that I can do 5 minutes of push-ups, anything, that if you do that and you can commit to that for a week, you prove to yourself that you can set a goal and that you can achieve it. And then take it on another level. Take it on another level and give yourself a bigger goal, and then a bigger goal. And from 5 minutes of exercise, you're now down the gym for an hour 3 times a week, or you've gone from going out on that first date to now being in a relationship with somebody for over a month. You've gone from thinking about investing in property to choosing a mentor or picking an area, or maybe even buying that first deal. You are on your way to whatever your metaphorical billion was for whatever it is that you want your life to be like in 5 years. And I'm not saying that that's what you need to go with, but if you make your goal too big, then you're not setting yourself up for success. So imagining yourself 5 years in the future and then coming back and sharing with yourself the steps to get you there actually is a really powerful thought process. You're starting to get clear on your strategy up front. And so then you can start to identify those techniques that can turn this idea of success, this imagined conversation we had out here 5 years in the future, to a very clear strategy with very clear action steps that you can follow. And because you start off with small ones, you can prove to yourself that you can do it. Your chances of success are so much greater than if you're just hyped up in a room, going to earn £1 million and have got no clue, no support, and don't have the mindset to help you work out how to get there. So understanding what success looks like for you, imagining yourself in that place, and then having that little conversation with yourself about what are the steps to get me here and how can I break those down into small successes so that I can achieve them, prove to myself I'm capable of this, prove to myself that I'm committed to this, and picking up on last week's podcast, shape my mindset to support me in this goal that I want to achieve. Then, of course, you're going to find, I would imagine, that there are bits of the knowledge that you don't understand, something that you're not clear on. And again, this can be from fact-based, like investing in property or losing weight or buying a house, right the way through to, I don't know, maybe understanding the societal norms of what it's like to date in 2024, 2025. So you need to get educated. And what you might do is refer to social media, or you might actually follow along on YouTube or read someone's book, or maybe work directly with someone. But before you go down that road, has this person got sufficient varied experience so that they can cope with the changes that our world brings for us? And yet enough specific experience that they can meet your personal goals and personalize their support for you. And if we go back to property investing, can they personalize their education in a way that helps you create your wealthy life and helps you apply your strategy? So if you don't pick the right person, you can be getting education, and it's not the sort of education that's going to support you to achieve your goals. And sadly, if I go back to our current school system, you imagine all the dreams that kids had. What dream did you have? I was going to be Jacques Cousteau, the new female Jacques Cousteau when I was a child. I watched him on the telly, and that's what I was going to be when I grew up. School never ever asked me what I wanted to do in that field. And if I'd thought about it now as an adult, probably the help I needed was that I should have done the sciences. I should definitely have done biology. I should have looked at the physical world, done geography, and then I should have been in a position where I did a lot of PE to be fit, and then possibly, I don't know whether it's sort of physics to understand how breathing underwater affects your body, or maybe the chemistry side of stuff, and then actually move myself forward down that path so I could have had that career. Fortunately, I was able to turn my life around and just follow the path that university gave me, bump into, a bit like you do in one of those pinball machines, bump into life events that set me off on different paths. And eventually, because I did this education, because I did the training around understanding my mind, pull myself back and put myself back on the path that I'd originally wanted to be. And instead of being an underwater scuba diver, because by then I was much older, I've been able to pick that up as a passion, as a hobby. Did you want to be a train driver or a fire engine driver or a spaceman, or maybe you wanted to be a nurse or a vet? If you've not managed to achieve that in your life, that childhood dream, I don't think that was your fault. I think that was the education system that you were in. And so what's really important is that you find the right educators, or the best possible educators, someone who is able to work with you on your vision, create a strategy that is your specific strategy that will be different from other people in the class, other people in the room, and then help you to apply it. Because without that, you're not going to be able to achieve the goal that you want to. In a sense, you're going to be setting sail in a boat without a map, and even without the weather forecast, and with no one there able to help you what to do when the storm clouds come in. So getting that right person to work with you, and then hopefully they've got education or knowledge sharing in a form that you prefer. Do you like to read books? I write books for people, and there are blogs, obviously. Do you like to listen? Well, presumably you do. That's why you're listening to this podcast. Maybe you also like to read along, which is why we make the transcripts. So in the show notes, you can read the transcripts. Maybe you like to watch, which is why I put the unedited versions of these recordings out onto YouTube. So some people like to watch someone as they're speaking. Maybe you like my little bits of hand gestures that you can see just above the screen on YouTube. Maybe that's important to you, but maybe you also like to read a bit, listen a bit, have a go, apply it, work out how it works for you, and then come back again. And that's where working with someone who understands how people think and can understand how you can best interpret information is really important to you. The next thing I would say is that you also need someone who is able to flex with you as you flex your techniques. Remember, strategy is the overarching goal up here, the thing that is pulling you forward, the thing that you want to achieve, the lifestyle, a wealthy lifestyle. The technique, particularly in the terms of property investing, the technique in property that you apply is the best possible technique at the moment with the resources you have to achieve the goal. The technique is like that bridge. Here you are with all your resources, your time, your money, your knowledge, and the technique is the thing that helps you achieve that wealthy life. Now that changes. It changes with the market conditions, interest rates going up and down, the different rules the government put into play, of course. And it might even change as your area changes. You know, I know of certain areas in the country that we would never have invested in. They were a bit grim. The house prices were too much, and the area just didn't warrant the hype. It was being flooded with people from social housing, so a lot of people on benefits, and that changes the nature and the quality of an area if that's out of balance. And now I can go back to those areas and they have dramatically changed. Areas in the country we used to invest in, and then all of a sudden the maths of the area didn't work, so we changed areas. So you need to be able to flex these techniques, but not in a way that is through a lack of commitment and I suppose even procrastination. Oh, right, okay, I'm going to go and do buy-to-lets in Manchester. No, I'm not. I'm going to do buy-to-lets in Leeds because Manchester doesn't work. Now I'm going to do HMOs in Norwich. You know, not jumping around all over the place because you need that focus, but flexing. So maybe it's not that you're not going to do buy-to-lets in Manchester, but maybe not in that postcode, maybe not at that price range. that you need to actually flex and pick another area. And also be aware that your appetite might change. You might become more open to more calculated risks. And this is because as you get more experience, you maybe become more confident. It could also be because you've really mastered the mindset and all of that deafening, oh, beware, beware chatter has died down for you. But be careful, are you taking risks too soon? You need to be able to tolerate the level of risk. I've seen people go from nothing into a major development. I remember working with someone back in the day, and all they were doing was searching for deals that were 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. And what they wanted to do was take on these deals and manage them. They'd never bought a property and they didn't have the cash themselves to put in. So they were trying to do these really big deals. And what they were going to have to do was find somebody with the money to come in and find the deal. And then they wanted to be the middle person. And they'd sort of like leapt ahead. And it's quite easy sometimes when you look at everything that's on social media, and particularly if you then get into some of these Facebook groups, to think that you're ready to take on a bigger risk sooner than you are. Remember, what you want to be doing all the time is, this is what I'm doing. This is my goal. This is how it's going to help me reach that 5 years. Is this working well? And you remember in episode 134, I spoke to you about the phases that you go through: acquisition, then consolidation, and then business development. You want to always make sure that you've consolidated, that you have protected what you've got before you go on to the next bit. So acquisition just takes you back and you do more of the same. Development is where you take it up a level. Don't jump to development after just your first, not development as in property development, but business development. Don't jump to business development after your first deal because you've watched what somebody else is doing on Facebook. Their circumstances will be completely different to yours. Go at your pace towards your 5-year goal and then your 10-year goal, and you will be more successful. I think one more thing I want to say to you is always remember the time factor in here. It's not just, I would say it's not just about the mindset and the money. It's not just about the mindset and the money. It's also about what's the best use of your time. I would assume that part of the reason that you're listening to this is that you want to change your life in some way. And often that comes with wanting more, either more control over your time so you can choose, or more freedom, which means more choice so you can feel more freedom. They're two sides of the same coin, and in this case it's the same coin. It's about time. How do you want to spend your time? And what you need to understand all the way through this is, if we've got this life that you're imagining in 5 years, how will your life improve, and how can property investments start to help you create that life you really want to live? And one of the things is how you manage your time. Now, this very much depends on how old you are and, of course, your family circumstances. If you're young and you're free and you don't have children, you might not even be in a relationship at the moment, or it might be just at the girlfriend-boyfriend stage. You're more inclined possibly to spend more of your time on your property technique. And this is why you'll often see a lot of young men, and occasionally young women, but a lot of young men doing rent to rent. It's time consuming, but they have the time. There aren't the other commitments in their life, like a relationship, like children, like family, or like a senior level job. I don't think you would ever see somebody who is in a senior position then choosing to do rent to rent, because if you're in a senior position, you know how much your time is worth, and you wouldn't necessarily choose rent to rent as the best way of leveraging your time. And as you get not necessarily older, but more committed, you get family commitments. Maybe you have children that you have to take care of, getting them to and from school, coping with when they're sick. Maybe you have a full-time job and you're actually being successful in your job. And I don't see a problem with having a job, because remember, a job is the thing that gets you a mortgage much more easily than if you're just working in your own business. Maybe you have to get very organized at that point. And if you don't get very organized, you'll end up giving up, or worse, failing. But if you've got more commitments, you need to be aware of the amount of time, and I would say at this point, energy that you have to give to a technique. Don't overload yourself. It's not about doing your current life plus property investment to the point of exhaustion, because in 5 years, you're going to live in a bigger house or have children, have a family, or have more money or have more holidays. You're not going to make it through the 5 years. Even if you get exhausted, organized, even if you get organized, you could still get exhausted and give up or make a mistake. So it's about pacing yourself. And I know what we've just talked about is imagining where you are in 5 years and then setting in place the things to do there. But as long as you are achieving goals all the way along, if you don't exactly get to that image and that image takes you 6 years, 7 years, or even 8 years, does that matter if you finally get what you're looking for, but you have done it in a way, in a pace that works for you? I know that I speak to a lot of people and I've interviewed a lot of people who I have known over the years, and they've got bigger properties than me. But I also look at them and they still work a 5-day week. And I don't, because I didn't want to. So if I only want to work a 3-day week and you're going to work a 5-day week, presumably, if I'm only putting in 60% of the so-called effort to your 100% and everything's equal, you're going to do better than I am. That's fine, because we're a different age, because our children are a different age, because our family circumstances, and more importantly, that vision of our lives is different. And I want the holidays. I want to be able to go away for a month's holiday if I choose. And I can't do that if I'm running a big business with lots of employees. So I have made my choices that are no judgment on anybody else, but based on my vision of how I want my life to be. So be comfortable with that. Don't compare yourself to others. Start with, what do you want? And then let's work out the plan to get you there. So, what does success look like to you? I hope that I've been able to put some wish into your life to take you through this process of starting to visualize what success could look like for you. Remember that if you make your money work hard to start with, you can always choose how to spend your time later. Getting your money to work hard so that you don't have to down the line is the ultimate of a wealthy life. That's what it's all about. But your specific wealthy life is not one to be judged against others. It's, what do you want that makes a difference? And then you start to look at your resources and go, okay, my idea is actually going to take me, given how old I am and how much money I've got and my family circumstances, it's actually going to take me 10 years to get there. But because I don't want to stick out a 10-year goal, which is way too long, what would halfway there look like? And how would that have changed my life to be halfway there? And maybe halfway there is changing the way you work, making your money work harder so that you can maybe buy out of your full-time job, maybe only work 4 days a week in 5 years' time. Maybe you get to take a sabbatical. Maybe you have created a business that runs alongside your full-time career so that you're generating more income and you're plowing it all into this business. And then, as with often happens with these graphs, they're fairly flat. The effects of what you're doing are very slow and very small to see. All of a sudden you turn that corner. You remember that metaphor I did, I can't remember which episode it was in now, about multiplying a pound to 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 to 16. You know, it takes ages to really start to see any difference. And then all of a sudden, round about your 14th multiplication, that last 30% of the effort is exponential. And within 21 multiplies, you go from 1 to 1,000,000. So you need to recognize your journey is like that. I hope you got a lot of benefit out of this podcast. I hope you've been able to make notes and to be able to apply this. I hope you do that imagination game and think of where you are in 5 years from now, and then send yourself back those messages on how you can do things differently, and also thinking about who you want to learn from. Are they the right person? Don't get sucked into the hype. Think, do they have the length of experience, the variety of experience, and can they help you work specifically with what your vision is, your strategy, and then identify the right techniques. Don't get hooked into a technique and then find that it's not going to get you to that goal that you've got. Of course, you can book a call if you're stuck in any way. Have a chat with me and I will do my best to help you. Meanwhile, thank you very much for listening. As always, next week is the last podcast in this series of 12. So very excited to be able to wrap all of that up for you. I look forward to speaking to you next week. In the meantime, have a great, wealthy and successful week, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you very much. So in this episode, I really wanted to get you to start thinking about this idea of success, and I encouraged you to go forward 5 years and imagine how your life would be different, and then to send yourself back some messages. It would be lovely to hear the messages that you want to send yourself, to share those, maybe even email me if you want. These are such powerful little sentences that can really make a difference to you. And you could even print out those messages to yourself and put them on the wall. I hope that you've really felt that this episode has been beneficial to you. It's sort of picked up on last week's idea of mindset, but being very much more practical in an imaginary way, getting you to think about what your life would be like and what you want your life to be like. Remember, it's your choice. You can either wander through life being that ball in the pinball machine where you're just bouncing off of events that are occurring to you, or you can determine where it is that you're heading. And yes, you might still bump off some of these life events and they might try and knock you off path. But at least if you know that you have a path that you want to be on, you can get back there and you can be shaping your life, your mindset, your finances, your investments, how you spend your time towards achieving the life that you want to live now, rather than waiting for some imaginary thing to happen, maybe a lottery win. You can shape your life today. You can live a wealthy life today. Thank you very much for listening. Please leave a review. Please make sure that you follow, and I'll speak to you next week. My name's been Vicky Reshape.